Hello and welcome to our afternoon edition of Arirang News, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Kwon Jang-ho, and it's good to have you with us. So it seems more and more likely that the much-anticipated second summit between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and US President Donald Trump will not take place until next year. US National Security Advisor John Bolton has suggested as much, and South Korean officials are also saying it will take some time. But they have also provided assurances that talks are ongoing. We'll further look at the status of negotiations between North Korea and the US later. But first, we start with the latest headlines by going over to Devin Whiting at the News Center. Devin.
Hi, Jang-ho. First, the latest on the job situation. Many young people in South Korea have been struggling to find work, with unemployment at the highest it's been in 13 years. Now, more measures from the government, including new jobs in the public sector and financial support for private companies. Ko Ryun-hee has the details.
At a meeting for ministries related to the economy on Wednesday, Korea's Finance Minister Kim Dong-yeon brought up the sluggish job growth and explained how the government aims to tackle the problem.
Recently, our economy has been solid in exports and consumption, but private investment has shrunk sharply and employment is continuing to grow slowly with single-digit increases in the second half of the year.
Minister Kim vowed to create 59,000 jobs for youth, people in their 50s and 60s, and the elderly, but the ministry did not confirm an exact timeline. Jobs will be created mainly in central government, public institutions, and local governments. Minister Kim also announced plans to boost private investment. Private sector-led investment will take place faster than scheduled, and more than $13.2 billion worth of financial aid will be provided to help companies boost investment, which will ultimately lead to more jobs. The finance chief also said the ministry will accelerate innovative growth by embracing the sharing economy, creating new markets for products and services. For instance, the government will provide measures to boost new transportation services and expand the scope of accommodation sharing. Kim also vowed to expand the healthcare market by clarifying the scope and criteria of the healthcare services provided by non-medical institutions. And in an effort to support small business owners and citizens, the government announced it would temporarily lower fuel taxes by 15% for 6 months, starting November 6. Ko Ryun-hee, Arirang News.
And the South Korean government has announced a raft of deregulation measures to make it easier to start a business. On Wednesday, Prime Minister Lee Na-kyun said the government is reforming 105 regulations for startups. Those include easing licensing and documentation, shortening processing times, and waiving fees. The Prime Minister stressed that new businesses create jobs and are proof of a vibrant economy. And he urged the Ministry of SMEs and Startups to come up with yet more solutions to help entrepreneurs. The UN's top official on human rights in North Korea says that despite the progress in building peace on the Korean peninsula, there's been no sign of change in the human rights situation. Oh Jung-hee has this report.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has had some historic summits with South Korean President Moon Jae-in and US President Donald Trump this year. But the outcome statements of those summits did not address human rights, and despite progress on building peace, the human rights situation in the North has not changed. That's the assessment of the UN's Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in North Korea.
Together to their important initiatives of engaging with the South Korean government and the US government and some others, it is the time for North Korea to show commitment to the human rights agenda, some way or another. We have seen nothing from North Korea in this respect.
Quintana recalled being a special rapporteur for human rights in Myanmar in 2012. He had voiced concerns on the military committing human rights crimes, but the international community, which was supporting the transition back then, quote, put aside human rights, the consequences of which, he says, we are seeing now. The independent investigator said he supports peace on the Korean peninsula, but that has to come with basic rights secured.
I will support a declaration of peace, definitely. Yes, I believe that there is an interlinked relationship between peace and human rights, and I would say yes to peace. But peace needs to be built also on the enjoyment of basic freedoms and rights.
Quintana called on Pyongyang to show commitment to change. The most important challenge, he says, is to gain access to North Korea. The EU and Japan have been drafting a new resolution on North Korea's human rights, which is to be submitted next week and is expected to be adopted by the General Assembly in December for the 14th straight year. Pyongyang, through its state media, condemned the move, saying Western hostile forces are conspiring to defame North Korea. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, generals from the two Koreas will meet this Friday to discuss how to form and run a joint military committee. They'll be meeting at the Tongilgak building on the North Korean side of Panmunjom. It's expected that they will assess the progress so far in implementing the inter-Korean military agreement signed last month. Also, other prospective projects, including the shared use of the Hangang River estuary. The South Korean delegation will be led by Major General Kim Do-gyun, and the North Korean side by Lieutenant General An Ik-san. According to Seoul's defense ministry, the talks were proposed by the South and Pyongyang accepted. U.S. President Trump's top security advisor, John Bolton, met with Russia's leader on Tuesday to discuss various international issues, including arms control. The two sides also reportedly agreed to hold a bilateral summit next month in Paris. Kim Yo-san tells us more.
U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton sat down with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow on Tuesday to discuss bilateral ties and a range of global issues. Ahead of the meeting, Putin highlighted the importance of maintaining dialogue despite their differences.
It would be very useful to exchange views on strategic stability and disarmament, on regional conflicts.
Saying he's well aware of Washington's unilateral intention to withdraw from the 1987 Intermediate-Range Nuclear Forces, or INF Treaty, Putin added Russia is puzzled by the unprovoked move that could be seen as unfriendly. Following the 90-minute meeting, Bolton explained that the U.S. believes Moscow has been violating the INF Treaty since 2013.
I think it was important from our perspective, as President Trump said on Saturday and said again yesterday, to deal with the question of Russian violations of the INF Treaty. It's a position Russia doesn't agree with, but which we feel very strongly about.
Adding that such progress could take months, Bolton said the official withdrawal is expected to be filed in due course. Following the meeting, Russia announced that the two countries have made preliminary agreements to hold a summit between their leaders. It explained it will take place next month in Paris on the sidelines of the celebration of the 100th anniversary of the armistice that ended World War I. Kim Yo-san, Arirang News.
The K-pop boy band BTS are getting official honors from the government this afternoon for their contribution to spreading Korean culture around the world. At 4:30 p.m. local time, the Korea Entertainment Awards will kick off at Seoul's Olympic Hall, where BTS will go to accept the award in person. The ceremony is run by the Culture Ministry, and the honor is called the Hwagwon Order of Cultural Merit. BTS are just back from the European leg of their world tour. They'll be the youngest people to ever receive the order, at an average age of less than 24, and they're the only K-pop idols to have ever been nominated for it. I'm Devin Whiting, and those are your news headlines.
Progress on talks between North Korea and the U.S. have been slow in recent weeks, especially after the Trump administration announced that a second summit with Kim Jong-un would not happen until after the midterm elections on November 6th. But discussions are said to be ongoing towards holding working-level and high-level talks, and now a South Korean official says that the U.S. is ready and is waiting for a response. Lee Ji-won reports.
A high-level meeting between North Korea and the U.S. is likely to take place as soon as the North is ready. A senior South Korean official with knowledge of the North Korea-U.S. talks told reporters in Washington on Tuesday that high-level talks are still being discussed, but a specific date and venue has not yet been confirmed, as the North is not giving an answer. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said in an interview with Voice of America last week that he's hopeful a senior-level meeting between himself and his North Korean counterpart will take place in the next week and a half or so. The South Korean official added the U.S. is ready for the meeting and it'll likely take place as soon as the North replies. On speculation, the North Korean leader's younger sister Kim Yo-jong, who serves as the first Vice Department Director of the Central Committee, could be the counterpart Pompeo mentioned. The South Korean official said it seems the U.S. is also unsure. Pompeo's counterpart had been the vice chairman of North Korea's ruling party Central Committee, Kim Young-chol, but he did not join the latest talks between Pompeo and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un during the secretary's fourth visit to the North. The South Korean official also touched on the working-level talks between North Korea's Vice Foreign Minister Choi Sun-hee and U.S. Special Representative for North Korea Stephen Biegun, which was agreed by Kim Jong-un back in October. While the meeting has yet to take place, the official said that too will happen once the North is ready. He added the working-level meeting will cover the joint declaration, escort, and even communication network for the second summit, so it takes time to prepare. The official says North Korea has bet everything into this game, including the dismantlement of its nuclear assets and facilities, and thus Pyongyang has to be careful and thoroughly prepare for the deal. The official expects the North will maintain its request for security assurances and the lifting of sanctions during its talks with the U.S., adding he expects a declaration to end the Korean War to be crystallized during the working-level talks. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
Now, to discuss further, we have with us Dr. Woo Jung-yup from the Sejong Institute. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me today.
So, as you saw in that report, it seems like a South Korean senior official has come out to try and give some assurances that talks between North Korea and the U.S. are ongoing and that some progress is being made towards working level and high level talks. But at the same time, he's also unable to give a timeline of when these talks might happen. So it seems a little neither here nor there. What do you make of his comments?
So that remarks by the South Korean government official was given during the Q&A session with Korean journalists. And I guess that's the best answer that he could give, because nothing has been confirmed between North Korea and the United States with regard to the next working level meeting or high level meeting, even though Secretary Pompeo mentioned during his press conference that he's very hopeful to have a meeting with his counterpart in a week or so. So I think the time is ticking, but we don't have any sign yet about the meeting is going well between two countries. So I think that South Korean government is still very hopeful for two countries to have a constructive talk with regard to the second summit and also denuclearization. But there's no seemingly clear progress between two countries yet.
So yes, no progress yet. And also the South Korean official backed up what the U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton suggested the other day as well. Bolton said in a recent interview that he now expects the next summit between Trump and Kim to happen after the new year. This is perhaps much later than some might have expected, that we might have expected, but now it looks more and more likely that it won't be happening this year.
So if it was not before the November 6th midterm election in the United States, there was no reason for United States to hurry to have a second summit within this year. And I think that the Secretary Pompeo's most recent visit in early October did not get the fruitful result that U.S. government wanted to have. So that is why the U.S. government believed it's better in their interest to have more talks between the summits happening this year. So that is why both countries, U.S. and North Korea, is taking time to have a agreement for the summit, and that's why it's been delayed, and everyone is now talking about next year, early next year, about the possibility of having a second summit between Trump and Kim.
But of course, before that summit can happen, there must be some sort of progress towards the details that leads up to the summit. So we can expect high level and working level talks to happen before then. But again, not really getting words on when that will happen. Pompeo said that he expects to meet with his North Korean counterpart, although we don't know who that is. He said he expects them to meet him in the next week or so, but no word yet. There's also no word yet between meeting between the U.S. Special Representative on North Korea, Stephen Biegun, with his counterpart, Choi Sun-hee. Because there seems to be no progress, do you think perhaps that North Korea are stalling?
So basically, the frame that North Korea now having is whether they are going to proceed with the United States in terms of the negotiation with regard to its nuclear weapons. So after the Inter-Korean summit in September, Secretary Pompeo mentioned that he suggests a meeting between Special Representative for North Korean policy, Steve Biegun, with his counterpart in Wien, Austria, but it didn't happen. And again, he also brought Mr. Biegun to Pyongyang when he visited Pyongyang in early October with the hope that there's some kind of meeting between Mr. Biegun and his counterpart. But it didn't happen again because at that time, Ms. Choi has been traveling to overseas, including Russia and China. So there has been no working level meeting yet as desired by the United States. So I think that North Korea is quite not ready to start the working level negotiation. I think that this is the kind of preparation from the North Korean side to start the negotiation from the position of strength. So they are going to delay as much as possible, so in the hope that U.S. can lower the bar of the negotiation terms. So I think that is the deliberate move by the North Korea.
There are some arguments for both of these sides, arguments which I'm about to present. So the fact that the summit is coming later than expected and the talks are happening slowly, some would say that this is a good sign because both sides are taking their time to lay out the details and it won't be a rushed job like the previous summits, which some have criticized it for. But others would say North Korea is just stalling, perhaps to even stockpile more nuclear weapons as such. What do you think, Dr. Yu? Is this a good sign or a bad sign that perhaps the next summit might not be rushed as previously?
We don't know yet whether this is a good sign or bad, but unfortunately, it's about how U.S. government is perceiving this kind of situation. So as North Korea is not really responding to the U.S. request for the working level meeting, high level meeting, and the negotiation about its nuclear weapons, that skepticism has been growing much faster than other countries expected. So as North Korea is not responding to U.S. request for the working level meetings, there's a skepticism growing within U.S. government and also outside the U.S. government. So I think that U.S. is going to demand same kind of terms for negotiation, but North Korea has been refusing it. So I think that it's going to be difficult to see where the reconciliation between that differences come from. So I think that it's still too early whether it's a good sign or bad sign, but it is true. It is indeed true that the skepticism within the U.S. government is growing.
What's the dangers of the fact that if it doesn't happen at the beginning of next year, say it keeps getting delayed, what are the downsides to that? What are the risks and dangers to the summit talks that get delayed even further down the line?
So, for example, South Korean government and the U.S. government agreed to suspend the Air Force military exercise, Vigilant Ace, in the hope that this kind of suspension can give North Korea some excuse to come out for the negotiation. So if North Korea is not responding to U.S. move, then U.S. might say that we are done with giving this kind of measures to North Korea because North Korea has not responded to their request. Then U.S. government might say that we are going to resume the military exercise as before, and then it might increase the military tensions again on the Korean Peninsula, which might lead the situation go back to the situation in 2017. So there is a danger that military tension is going up. So the window for the North Korea is going to narrow in the future.
Perhaps the biggest loser in all this, if talks do keep getting delayed, is South Korea, who's been really pushing to restart cooperative projects with North Korea as well. For example, South Korea's timeline with North Korea goes that President Moon had previously said that he wanted a declaration to end the Korean War by the end of the year. He also agreed with Kim Jong-un that Kim would come to Seoul by the end of the year as well. It seems like these things won't be happening now.
So at the point of the Inter-Korean Summit in early September, the focus was given to the declaration to end the war. But North Korea seems to now move from declaration to end the war to the easing the sanctions. So when North Korea keeps saying about the sanctions, then which United States has been refusing to talk about it, then it's going to be difficult to go back to the focusing on declaration to end the war. That means that United States and North Korea is not approaching to each other about the issues. Then it's going to be difficult for South Korean government to persuade these two countries to focus more on the declaration to end the war, which is now not the focus of the talks between United States and North Korea. So I think it's very difficult for South Korean government to persuade two governments to agree on the declaration to end the war within this year.
South Korea has been very active in interacting with North Korea in the last couple of weeks as well. There have been a series of talks, for forestry talks and military talks, and there's another one scheduled this week. But until the US and North Korea kind of make progress towards their negotiations, there's very little South Korea can do in their interaction with North Korea as well. Is that correct?
Yes, because what North Korea wants is basically the economic cooperation with the South Korean government. And the Panmunjom Declaration and the Pyongyang Declaration also aims to increase the level of economic cooperation between two Koreas. But with the current sanction regime, it's going to be really difficult for South Korean government to have this kind of measures for economic cooperation unless South Korean government is taking a risk of violating the sanctions. So without the progress in denuclearization talks, it's unlikely that we are going to see some lifting sanctions or easing the sanctions. Then it's going to be difficult for South Korean government move forward with the economic cooperation. So South Korean government desperately need some progress in denuclearization talks between U.S. and North Korea.
Meanwhile, the Moon administration in South Korea has ratified the Pyongyang joint declaration that was reached in September when President Moon Jae-in went to North Korea. But the Moon administration ratified it only because it was part of, they called it the subsidiary to the Panmunjom Declaration, which was reached in April. Controversially, that has not been ratified yet. So opposition lawmakers are saying this is, you can't ratify the second agreement before we even ratify the first one. But despite those objections, there probably isn't going to be much that the opposition party can really do at this point to stop, say, President Moon Jae-in's initiatives and efforts.
It is because of that vague status of North Korea within South Korean constitution and law. Under the South Korean constitution, North Korea cannot be recognized as a state because whole Korean peninsula is a South Korean territory under our constitution. So the legal status of North Korea is, at best, can be described as a special status, which is not recognized as a nation state. So it's somehow the South Korean government argue that because it's not a state, we can do this. But at the same time, now then, it's going to be difficult to persuade the South Korean public because now North Korea is not a state, but maybe in the future when we are discussing the peace treaty, there should be an element of like border redesignation. That means that we have to acknowledge North Korea as a nation state when we discuss the border, then it also causes a problem. So it's all because of the vague status of North Korea, but it will cause the problem in the future as well.
And just before we go, let me go back to one of the points I made earlier as well. So it seems like Kim Jong-un won't be coming to South Korea at this year because there's been no real progress between North Korea and the US as well. But do you think perhaps in the future we could see Kim Jong-un in South Korea? Do you still think there is that slimmer of a hope and possibility?
So there's still a possibility that Chairman Kim can come to pay a visit to South Korea. But under the current status of the progress between North Korea and the United States, there's nothing much he can declare with our president. So unless there's a progress in the nuclearization front, there's nothing much he can say that he achieved certain things with the South Korean president. So maybe for political reasons that might hinder him from attempting to coming to South Korea with the current status. So if there is a rapid progress in the nuclearization talks between US and North Korea, we see some possibility that he can still come to Seoul.
Well, if that does happen, that really will be a momentous occasion, a historic one. And as a news worker, I would be very looking forward to that very much as well. Anyway, it's always great to have you on the show. Thank you for being here and giving us your insights.
Thank you.
Now that's where we'll close out our show, but do tune in to our later newscasts for the latest updates from Korea and around the world. Thank you for watching and hope you can join us again next time. Goodbye.
Before we continue on with Mr.
A wind of peace is blowing over the Korean peninsula with the Inter-Korean Summit. A road to peace invites Korean and international experts to offer in-depth assessments on the latest developments in Korea and share insight on key political, economic, and social issues in the communist regime. Find out everything you need to know about inter-Korean relations and what we can expect through a new start. A road to peace. How is the fourth industrial revolution changing various industries in Korea? By exploring various domestic economic patterns and scientific advancements, we'll get a glimpse at how trends in Korea may spread all around the world. We'll bring you a full analysis on the outlook of the future and how Korea will be the center of this change. Money Monster.
Joining us today on Heart to Heart is
Arirang TV's signature talk show, Heart to Heart. We bring in world leaders, business people, experts, artists, and Koreans who have made an impact in today's Korea. Hear their professional and personal life stories as well as their achievements, secrets to success, and future plans. Don't miss your chance to catch the engaging interview, Heart to Heart.